Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Megan Lloyd, and I'm really excited about our guest today, Clint Pulver. He is the Undercover Millennial, and I'm so tickled that he gets to speak to our audience. I feel like his message is just so relevant to what we're all doing and experiencing right now. So I'm going to introduce him for a little bit, and then I'm going to have him say hi and tell us some things and share his genius with us. And you probably saw when you registered some of his bio, but I want to remind you a little bit about just how awesome he is and the value he brings to us. So he's a professional keynote speaker, author, musician, pilot, and workforce expert. In fact, he and I actually went to high school together, and I remember him playing the drums often in our talent shows. And he has done that now, and he's won an Emmy Award for some things that he's done. And anyway, I'm excited for you to kind of see what he's done. He also has helped transform some corporations like Keller Williams, AT&T, Hewlett Packard, and his focus is on retaining the people you have in your team and your company. And I'm excited for him to be here. Clint, do you want to go ahead and say hi and tell us a little bit about
What's going on, everybody?
Hey.
Good to see everyone on the call. Thanks for jumping on. This is awesome. I'm very excited to be here, Megan. I appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you, Clint. I love the Undercover Millennial idea. Do you want to tell everybody where it started and kind of how you came to receive that title?
Yeah, so 5 years ago, I was a part of a mastermind group, and it was a group of CEOs, other executives, and we were in New York City, and we were meeting with other business leaders. So fun excursion. We're in the hustle and bustle of the crazy city, and one of the guys that we met with owned a large sporting good retail chain. And we're having this conversation with him, and he's talking about business and how they've had to adapt, and they're changing their business model and their strategy to meet the demands of an ever-changing workforce. And I'll never forget, he had this thick New York accent, and he said, "You got to adapt or you're gonna die. If you don't adapt, then you're gonna die." And it was very profound, and I was like, I agree. I totally agree with you. And then I asked, so what about your management style? What about how you deal with people, how you retain employees? Have you had to change that versus what you did 20 years ago? And he fired back and he said, nope, no need to change there. And I said, interesting. That's really fascinating. You feel the need to change how you do business, but there's no need to change how you work with people. And remember, we're in the store. We're surrounded, by all of the sporting good apparel. And I looked out on the floor, and all of his employees were my age or younger. So millennials, Gen Z. And I thought to myself, Megan, I said, I wonder if they would say the same thing. I wonder if those employees would have the same reality that this guy does. And so I thank the gentleman for his time. We had 35 minutes to kill until we needed to be to the next place. I had nothing else better to do. I literally looked how I look right now. I had a backwards hat on. I was wearing a hoodie. I looked like a customer. I was a customer. And I walked up to the first employee that I saw, and I just said, "Hey, I'm just curious. What's it like to work here?" And the employee got really quiet and started to look around. I felt like we're doing an illegal drug exchange. And he said, "Do you really want to know?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm interested." And he said, "I can't stand it here."
Oh my goodness.
He said, "I literally feel like I'm a cog in the wheel. All of us are cogs in the wheel here. It's just a job. Like, I don't even think my manager knows I'm here right now." And then I said, well then why are you still working here? And the employee said, "No, I've already applied to 3 places. As soon as I get a job, I'm out."
Oh my goodness.
And I thought, Megan, I was like, well, maybe the kid's just having a bad day, right? So I went and asked another employee, and another, and another. And at the end of the 35 minutes that I had, I interviewed 6 of his staff members. And at the end of those conversations, 5 out of the 6 of his employees said they would not be working for him and his store in less than 3.5 months.
Oh my goodness.
The reality of the employee experience versus the perception of leadership was completely different. And that was the moment for me, because I realized there's a gap. There's always going to be a gap between how a manager or a team leader feels that they're doing in their leadership versus the reality of what the employees or the team members are feeling. There's no incentive for an employee to honestly tell you how they feel. There's no incentive there, right? The incentive is you're going to get blacklisted, or you're going to be deemed the dramatic one, or you cause issue or conflict. But they will tell another millennial. And I realized that simply because of my age, I was able to walk into an organization and create an environment where employees could speak their truth.
So did you start doing this then for other companies, where you'd walk in and be like, hey, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go undercover?
Yep, that's exactly what we did. So that started for me, my organization that's called the Center for Employee Retention.
Cool.
And for the last almost 5 years, we have worked with 181 organizations, and I have interviewed undercover over 10,000 employees as the Undercover Millennial.
Oh my goodness.
And it's been a lot of work. It's been a ton of work, but we have created the most real and authentic data behind how great leaders created organizations their people never wanted to leave.
So that's super fascinating, especially since our audience right now is network marketers. So tell how that translates in the corporate world to what they're experiencing right now as creating a downline with customers and business partners.
Yeah, everything that you do as a leader, it matters, because you are the number one reason why people stay. You're also the number one reason why your people leave. In traditional network marketing, you have the leader, right? You have the team leader, the person who's over it. Maybe it's a partnership, it's maybe a group, but for the most part, there's an overarching leadership theme. In our research, usually we talk about leadership and management, leadership management, but there's a middle ground, and it is what we call mentorship. This is really important. And Megan, if I can, I would love to jump into something here. So right here, I've got this little phrase. It says, opportunities are found within the problems. Everybody say this with me on the count of 3, just for fun. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Opportunities are found within the problems. I know everybody's on mute, but I can see.
Nice. That's okay. Everyone's mouthing it. I can see people mouthing it. Awesome. Okay, good job. Except for it doesn't say that. Watch. Opportunities are found within the problems.
No, it doesn't.
What? There's 2 thes. Okay, 2 thes. It's as clear as day. I didn't change the font. I didn't change the text, but probably most of you never saw the 2 thes. This is the big issue in leadership, is sometimes we look at our employees, and it's kind of like we almost view them as a fireplace. And we look at them and we say, give me heat, then I'll give you wood. Give me results, give me productivity, sell some oils, do something meaningful. Then we'll talk about growing your network. And then we'll talk about maybe helping you get where you want to go. And we have this skewed perception. And sometimes it's easy to look at a generation like the millennials or Gen Z, and we see problems. Or you can see opportunities. So I say that to just paint this picture a little bit of what we're diving into right now. Everybody, if you're writing notes, if you're taking notes, I recommend that. Successful people ink what they think. I want to identify 4 types of distributors, 4 types of team leaders that we find in network marketing. Is that okay if I take a minute to do this, Megan?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So there's 2 things that you need to consider in your leadership: standards and connection. If an employee was satisfied with their job or dissatisfied with their job, I could always narrow it down to 2 things. The standards of that team leader and the connection, or the lack thereof. Like, standards is like productivity, the ability to move oils, the ability to sell product, the ability to network, the ability to create a team, the ability to market, the standards of running a business. The connection piece is all about empathy, connection, getting to the part about them, realizing that your team members have a job outside of doTERRA. They have a life, and you're willing to connect with them. So the first distributor that we find is what we call the removed. I'm just going to call them managers for right now. Okay, it says managers. You can think team lead, you can think distributor. It's you. We're talking about you. So the removed manager, they are low on standards and they're low on connection. We see this a lot in network marketing, unfortunately, where you have people that are just burnt out.
Yeah.
They're tired. They're just the leaders that they're kind of in the organization, but they're not into the organization.
Yeah.
They don't really care about the people. They don't really care about the product. They just, there was a time where they killed it, and now it's just kind of there. So what does this create in their teams? Disengagement. Write that down. Disengagement. I'm sorry, I ran out of room. I apologize for my handwriting. I should have been a doctor. Disengagement. Why should I care? The team lead doesn't care. The distributor doesn't care. Why should I care? The second, fairly common that we find, is the Buddy Distributor. This is the distributor that's really low on standards, but they're high on connection. They want to be everybody's friend. They're beautiful at creating a network. They're great at relationships, but when it comes to, hey, we need to sell something. Hey, we need to have a hard conversation. Hey, listen, this is not working. They fear that because they want to be liked more than they're respected. So what does this create in your teams? Entitlement.
Ooh, that's powerful. I kind of need to like sit with that for a second, because I feel like that's huge.
It is huge because this is where almost your team members become more of the distributor than you are.
Yeah.
Because you're the friend. You're the distributor that goes on the weekends and plays Xbox with everybody. And then you come in on Monday, guns a-blazing, saying, we need to sell more oils. And they're like, dude, I just saved you in Call of Duty. We just had the family barbecue and we talked about our kids. And now all of a sudden you're the boss. We create this weird relationship. And it creates a sense of entitlement. Number 3, though, unfortunately, is the most common. And it's what we call the controller. This is the team lead, the distributor that is high on standards, low on connection. This is the heavy hand, the command and control model of leadership. Put your head down, go to work. Don't complain to me. Do you know how we used to have to sell? You know how I built this business? It wasn't like today. There was no Facebook when we started out. There was no Facebook ads. Put your head down, don't complain, do your job. I show you that I love you because I give you a paycheck. You get a commission. So
I
what
hear
does
this a lot, especially those that
Yeah.
were in it 10 years ago with, like we didn't have any
Yeah.
ebooks or guides, or we didn't have any of the resources we have today.
Totally. Yeah, and you get almost like this sense of resentment.
Yeah.
And bitterness, and it's you're looking at people as a fireplace. Give me the heat, then I'll give you the wood, and it just doesn't work that way. So that's where you create rebellion. Rebellion. Everybody write that down. Rebellion.
So is that like the one that you met in the store where they're rebelling against the company and intending to leave?
It's just pushback. There's no invested interest in them as a person. All you care about is the numbers. Why should I care about your business? I'm not engaged. You look at me as a cog in the wheel, someone to sell an oil, not a person that has the ability to grow within a company. But right here, the last one, Megan and everybody, this was the magic. Everybody write this down. This is what we call the mentor distributor. Mentorship versus management. It's a totally different thing. They are high on their standards, and they were also equally high on their ability to connect. What does this create in your teams?
Commitment.
And respect. Respect.
That's powerful.
This combination is something that every leader needs to know and understand. And I want you to ask yourself, if you're watching this, where do you fit? Are you the buddy? Are you the removed distributor? Are you the controller? Some of you are like, I rotate between all 4 all day, every day. The mentor, though, I think, Megan, this is important to know. Mentorship is the key. It's not leadership. It's not management. It's mentorship. When an employee
still have hard conversations and still be the buddy at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And mentorship is unique because when we usually categorize these things, we look at leadership or management. Mentorship's here in the middle. Leadership, you are the leader. You are the visionary. You stand in the front and you lead. You want everybody to follow you. Management is about making sure there's no holes in the ship, right? Making sure that everything can move smoothly. You're fulfilling orders, making sure that the website functions, making sure that this Zoom call is working, right? Those are admin, managerial type styles of effectiveness. But mentorship is about taking care of people on the ship, Mentorship cannot be a title. It can only be earned. That's why it was so powerful. When somebody became a mentor, not a boss, that was powerful. When employees hated their jobs, they talked about the manager. When an employee loved their job, they talked about the mentor.
That's fascinating. So how do they step into that space? Because they're kind of mentoring two different audiences right now. They're mentoring their customers and they're mentoring their business partners. So
Yep.
how do they step into that, especially if they don't understand the Gen Z millennials and what they're wanting right now?
Yeah. One thing I will say about the Gen Zs and the millennials, and again, 5 years of research, 10,000 employees that we have interviewed. The moment you can step away from viewing your employees, your team members as a generation, the sooner and closer you get to winning. There is no one size fits all approach to marketing to an individual, to working with an individual based off of their age. I will claim that statement until the day I die. We cannot base a stereotype off of millions of people, by the way, based off of the year they were born. And some people are like, well, boomers were different than, boomers hated the Gen Xers. They called them hippies. Dang hippies. Gen Xers are calling millennials lazy and entitled, and they don't want to do anything. They don't want to work. They don't want to stay committed. And millennials are starting to do it to Gen Z. We have to get away from the stereotype. Stop looking at people as a generation and start looking at them as individuals. I have found millennials who are lazy, entitled, and not loyal. They exist. I have also found millennials who are incredibly engaged, incredibly hardworking, and millennials that want to work, that they want to earn it, they want to work for it. It depends. It depends on the perspective that they grew up in. It depends on what they want. Your goal in leadership, please remember this, you cannot change anybody. You can't control anybody. We try to, and I blame my industry. A lot of times professional speakers, they come in saying, here's the 4 hacks you need for every millennial. Or if you have millennial employees, you got to know these 5 things or they're going to leave your company. That is a marketing ploy. There is no generational hack. It's just good business. It's about treating people as individuals. And you will find that individuals vary across all generations. Now, I'm not burying my head in the sand. I realize that the world that we live in has changed. We live in a different world than how the world was 20 years ago. And that obviously influences how we would market, how we would network, how we would sell a product, how we would retain people. But we cannot look at people as a generation and read some article in Forbes and then expect to just all of a sudden magically connect with a generation that's younger than you or even older than you. The point is, it takes time. It takes effort. That's how we create great relationships. And when you can become the mentor, that's where you win. And so to answer your original question, Megan, you asked about, well, what do we do? How do we become this person? That voluntarily we create an opportunity for people to connect with us. Everybody write this down very quickly. You cannot become a mentor until the mentee invites you into their heart. You cannot become a mentor until the mentee invites you into their heart. It must be earned. And again, you can't control anybody. All you can control is yourself and what you do and the business that you market, the opportunities that you provide. Great mentors connect people to their dreams. And it's because they have 5 characteristics. When I would go in undercover into an organization and I'd walk up to an employee and they would say, I love my job. I love it here. And I'd say, why? Why do you stay here? And they would say, I stay here because of Susie. Who's Susie? Who is Susie? And then I go to the next employee who had been there for 12 years. And I'd say, why do you stay here for 12 years? Susie. We work here because of Susie. I left the other company when Susie left, and I followed Susie here. Why? These are the 5 characteristics. Everybody write these down. If you ever become a mentor, This is the best thing you can be doing in your leadership. It is the best thing you can be doing in your marketing. Mentorship is also a form of salesmanship, by the way. How can you not just become the salesperson or the doTERRA representative and become a mentor in somebody's life? Helping people to connect them to something bigger than themselves. The products you sell help people. They help people live better. They help people heal. They help people sleep better. You need to show them that you are the person that will connect them to that. And any mentor that ever earns the right of mentor or that title, they have these 5 C's. 5 C's of mentorship. So number 1 is confidence. Okay, if I'm an employee on your team, I want to make sure that you're confident. Do you have confidence in the product? Do you understand the product? Are you confident in yourself, in your ability to help them succeed? If you are not confident in that, that does not exude trust. Confidence exudes trust. And if you're confident in who you are and in your business, that gives me a reason to mentor with you. Number 2 is credibility. What's your background? What's your history? How long have you been selling oils? How long have you been in the company? How long have you been doing this for? You know, if you're a car salesman, have you sold a car before? Did you start out on someone else's team? How many oils did you sell in your first year? I want to know your credibility.
Here's the question. For those that are newer distributors, how do they establish that credibility in the beginning?
That's a great question. And if you're brand new, any win that you have builds to that credibility. You have to play with what you have, right? And the quicker you are at creating credibility, the more trustworthy, the more opportunities you will have to be a mentor. And so you start with what you have, okay? And if you don't have credibility, then that would be number 1 on my list right now. I would be doing whatever it takes to establish some credibility. I think sometimes they just want to jump into a leadership position and then they wonder why they're not building a team. It's because, do you have the credibility to do that? Because
That made
people
me
trust
think of, that made me think of your experience when you first talked to those first 6 employees and how maybe you translated that to what you do now. How did you step into your first company and say, I know I've only spoken to this one other company before, but I would like to do this for you. How did you establish that credibility?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've always remembered is the power of rookie mode. Rookie mode, rookie mode, rookie mode. Liz Wiseman refers to it in her book called Multipliers. I think it's a beautiful thing. You admit that you are not a know-it-all. You almost admit that you are not the most credible, meaning that you don't have the most history. But in doing that, you establish almost more credibility. So I would walk into an organization. I said, hey, I've got this idea. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to create. I've done this with one other company, and I'm looking for an opportunity. We've created an environment where we can figure out what your employees are really thinking, what your employees are really feeling. And haven't done it a lot, but I want to give it a shot. I just admitted to the fact that I'm a rookie, and that almost creates an opportunity of more trust because everybody remembers when they were a rookie. They remember what it feels like to just start out. And a lot of people, when you admit to that and you don't come in calling a story bigger than it is, it creates more trust. And people are going, okay, I'll work with you.
Especially because the worst thing, we've all experienced this, is when somebody says they know all the answers and then they can do something that they can't deliver on. And if we can admit, like, I'm new to this, and I feel like it sort of creates a level ground where you can over deliver instead of promising something that you can't do. I like, we're not asking the right questions.
Totally.
Sorry,
Totally.
Go ahead to your other C's. I just thought I just wanted to.
It's a great point. Great
touch
point.
on those.
So last thing, competence. Can you do the thing that you're actually talking about, right? You might know everything about the game of basketball, but can you actually get out and shoot a hoop? You know, do you understand the oils? Do you understand their needs, their purposes, not just the sales process? I want to mentor with a practitioner, not a theorist. I see this a lot in network marketing where, you know, they started selling oils, or they were selling the product 10 years ago. But now they've built an organization and they don't sell anymore. That's not competency. I want someone who is actively in the trenches, someone who is doing this, eating it, sleeping, breathing, doing the thing that they're teaching me to do, so they're relevant. Competence matters. Candor's number 4, honesty. Please write this down. Great mentors have the ability to create relationships so strong that honesty can exist. I know that's a mouthful. Create relationships so strong that honesty can exist. Being candid in your industry is so important, not just in how you deal with customers and sell products, but it's also in the conversations that you have with your team members. It's like the bank account principle, right? We make deposits of trust with our individuals, and that allows us to make withdrawals. So we can have those hard conversations. We can have honest conversations. Candidness matters to significant mentorship.
Can I touch on that for a
Yeah,
second
yeah,
too?
go ahead.
When I'm thinking about the oils and people teaching classes, I've seen this sometimes where a newer person will come in and someone will say, I want to know all about all of these things. How do oils work with pets? And they're like, whoa, I just barely got started with how they work with people. I don't know how they work with pets yet. And so they might try to like well, I did, and they start stumbling something out instead of being like, you know what, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I think that's like, that goes right in candor. And like, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I have a great support team and an upline that I can go ask and find that information. I'll get back to you. I think that would change the whole conversation.
Yeah. Or you know, an employee comes in and they're like, hey, so I you know, I want to make $10,000 a month my first year, and that's really my goal. You know, there's some team members are like, yeah, absolutely, we'll do it. We can do it. You know, and they speak this large, profound thing, and that's obviously can be possible, right? But to take that down a notch and to have a real honest conversation in everything that you do, candidness matters.
Yeah, like how would we get there if that's your goal?
Exactly.
Let's break it down and see if you can actually commit to getting there, and this is what it takes. And
Yep, and I'm going to be honest with you and letting you know what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that leads to the last C, which is caring. You know, just the ability to care. I mean, what a concept, but it matters. When you have a relationship where you know that somebody is actually an advocate for you, not just a developer. That's what employees talked about. They talked about an advocate, not just a manager. Do you actually advocate for team members, or do you just try to get them to grow? Do you try to get them to produce? Are we getting to the part about them? One thing we've learned, Megan, in all of our research that stands the test of time with every single employee, every one of them is asking the question of their leader, let me know when it gets to the part about me.
Ooh, do you know what I love about that is when we requested everybody submit questions for this conversation, so many of them said, I don't know how to get my builders to move to the next step. They're not moving with me, or they're stuck in the mud and I can't get them to go where I want them to be. But what you're saying is we need to forget about where I want them to be and let's have a conversation and figure out where they want to be. What do they want?
And some people hear that and they go, well, those entitled little shining stars in my life, right? Like, let me know when it gets to the part about me. But it's not about entitlement. It's about good business. You have to bring humanity back into the workplace. I promise everybody that's on this call, if you don't, your people will go and they will find that somewhere else. I promise you. Megan and I were talking about this before. We are about to see in 2021, I'm calling this right now. We have done research during 2020, and in quarter 3 and quarter 4 of 2021, we will see a massive exodus in the job market. COVID-19, 2021, we've had all-time high retention rates. Everybody hunkered down. If they had a job, if they had a little bit of income coming in, they held on to that because it was uncertainty, right? We had no idea what the future held. But now that we're coming out of this pandemic, employees, 2 things are front of mind. Number 1, they remember how you treated them during the pandemic. Everybody remembers. And I saw some pretty crazy, horrific things that happened during 2020. They also remember the good things that happened, the beautiful things that leaders did during a time of chaos. So they remember. And number 2, everybody has been given time to think, to really question their job, to question where they're at in life. Is this really where I want to be? People can now realize, we were talking about this, they can live in Colorado and work in New York City and make twice the amount of money. The market has changed. The world has changed. There's been a disruption. And people are realizing, oh my gosh, my job does not look the same today as it did in 2019. And so now more than ever, you have to be considering, how do I become this for my people? And I would also advocate for two things to consider here. If your people cannot grow where they're at in your organization, they'll go and grow somewhere else. That's number one. So potential needs to be communicated to people. Number two is recognition. Okay, we've got the growth aspect, and then we've got the recognition side. If your people aren't seen, if they're not heard, if they're not being understood, they'll go and be seen and heard and understood somewhere else. Again, you are in the role of mentorship, of serving people, of giving to people. If you do not want to do that, if that feels like a burden, if you do not want to be the advocate in the story, then being a team leader and being a distributor is maybe not the best thing. Like that's your job. That is the role that you are in, because everybody's asking, let me know when it gets to the part about me. And if that stresses you out, or if that's a burden to you, then you're going to have a difficult time creating an organization where people thrive. They don't just survive.
So how do they start that conversation? Maybe that's like with a customer. How do they step in and say, hey, I care about you. It's time to talk about you now. How do they even broach that conversation? Especially if this is a customer that may be enrolled and has never ordered since.
Yep. So one thing that's important, this approach, what I'm about to talk about, can go towards a customer. It can go towards your team members. And it is the aspect of what I call a status interview. A status interview. Now, again, I'm speaking from the lens of like a manager to an employee. Okay, that's my area of expertise. That's where my research is. But I do think that it applies to good customer service. It applies to sales. And the status interview comes from my background of being in the medical profession. For 5 years, I worked in the operating room as an orthopedic specialist, and we would do total hips and knees and craniomaxillofacial surgery. And the doctors would always call out and they would say, hey, can I get a status update? I need a status report. What's the status of the patient? And what they're really asking is can you tell me what the vital signs are reading? Vital signs. Everybody has them. Every customer has them. Every business has it. It's a living, breathing organism. We all are. Your vital signs are your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your body temperature, and your blood pressure. If one of those are gone, you're not doing very well. Your employees have vital signs too. Our customers have vital signs. So I recommend checking the status, because when you look at the vitals determine treatment. Everybody write that down. Vitals determine treatment. We look at the vitals. Okay, that tells us how we need to treat the patient. Then what do you do after that? You recheck the vitals, and then we treat again. And we continue that cycle until healthy stability is maintained long term. I recommend to check the status of a customer, to check the status of an employee. I recommend these 3 questions. Number 1, what can I do to keep you here? When's the last time you took a moment and you called up an employee and you started the conversation with vocal praise and you said, hey, listen, I appreciate you and everything you're doing in our organization. Your sales have skyrocketed. You're doing really great. And I appreciate you a lot. And I gotta know, what can I do as your leader to keep you here? When's the last time you took a moment to ask somebody that?
And then be ready to be vulnerable, be ready for any positive or negative feedback that might come.
And that is the reason why most people never ask that question. Because they're afraid of the answer. What if they're like, I want more commission. I want ski passes. We need to bring bag chairs in the office and everybody needs a raise. When they're like, I can't do that. Here's the thing. If you can't do what they ask for, look for a variable. Look for an option. Say, we can't increase the commission. I can't do this, or I can't, whatever it is that they're asking for. If you can't do it, after really considering if you can, then ask for an option. What else can we do? Maybe it's flexibility in your schedule. Maybe it's giving you a little more product, allowing you to give out some more samples. Like, what are some other options? And if you come to the conclusion where there is no other option, at least you asked. Again, we can't control anybody, but you can control yourself. I love that age-old adage, Megan, of there's that phrase, if you feed a man a fish, then you feed him for a day. But if you can teach him how to fish, then you fed the man for a lifetime. Every time I hear that, I say, who said the guy wanted a fish? Who said the guy wanted a fish? I'm not really a fish guy. I would rather a steak. The point is, we need to be willing to ask. How do you expect to connect? How do you expect to serve better? How do you expect to create unity and lasting loyalty without ever asking anybody what that looks like to them?
And that just gives me like this crazy aha, because I think sometimes we might feel like that's a more natural conversation with our team. But then when you actually ask that to a customer and say, hey, I appreciate, that you're here and that you've ordered from me in the past. What can I do to get you to stay?
Yeah.
How can I serve you today?
Yep. What can I do to keep you here?
What do you want? What would make being a part of my team or part of our company impactful? What do you want from your experience here? And then hear what they have to say. We're like, well, I don't really feel like I know anybody else that's using oils, or I don't know, you might be surprised by what they say, but like, let's create that. Let's create a community then.
Yep. You don't know until you ask. Yeah. And that leads to question number 2. Question number 2 is, what is getting in the way of your success? Okay. Or this could be, what's getting in the way of you purchasing more oils, or what's getting in the way of you, continuing to work with me. Like, what is it? What's getting in the way? And in your teams, maybe there's somebody else above them that they're never going to surpass, or maybe there's someone in the organization they just don't like, or maybe they had an issue with the product. You don't know. You don't know until you ask. What's getting in the way of your success? And then the third question is, what can I do to help you get there? What do you need from me? Again, your job is to become an advocate for people, to block, to be a mentor, to connect people to what matters to them. And so those 3 questions is something I would recommend. And every good employee, every good team member needs to be asked those 3 questions next week. Because again, the job churn is happening and people are leaving. They are going to other things now more than they ever have in the last probably 5 to 6 years that we've seen in this economy. So ask the questions.
That's amazing. And I feel like right now you can see that with some of our leaders that are asking those questions instead of saying, I wish you would move with me. I'm ready to move and you're not coming. Why are you stuck? Like, don't you know you can just do A, B, and C? And then that doesn't serve them. Instead of saying, hey, where do you want to be? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, what do you need to stay? Like, I feel like it's almost a life-changing conversation instead of like it's almost like the parenting, right? Instead of telling my kids, I want you to be here, instead I have to remove what I want them to become and say, what do you want?
Yep.
And it's hard.
Yep. Giving them the choice, them the choice. And then again, that's where standards and connection come into play. And they have the opportunity to choose that.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I know that your time is precious, Clint. So I want to open it up to everybody else and go ahead and either type into the chat or unmute yourself unless there's something else, Clint, really quick. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we roll out the red carpet for Clint really fast? I know we had hundreds of questions. Literally, there were so many questions that came in. I know we can't get to them all, but what would you like to hear more? Everybody that's here.
Yeah, and feel free to even just unmute yourself and we can have a conversation too.
While they're kind of thinking about that question, I know that you said we can't label millennials and Gen Zs in like we shouldn't be seeing people as a generation. We should be seeing them as individuals. And that's so impactful and so powerful. And the tools that you've shared with us today, I think, are really going to move some things forward. Are there any things that are generally that you would feel comfortable saying that would help identify what are people needing right now that maybe are in that younger generation from things that we haven't experienced in an older generation that they want, besides obviously connection and being valued and recognized and seeing them for who they are? Are there general things that help them that are different than some of those older generations? Again, not that we're labeling them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are some instead of differences, perhaps similarities that I
Hmm.
would focus on. When employees talked about how they loved their job, they loved the organization they worked with, they loved what they were a part of,
Hmm.
there were always three general themes. And this applies to Gen Z, millennials, boomers, Xers. I think it's something that we all want. And I think
Hmm.
it's something that's worth asking yourself as a leader. Do
Hmm.
I provide this in a way that's valuable to them, not you? Because remember, it doesn't really matter what you think because it matters about them, right? Everybody's asking the question, let me know when it matters to me. So we have to think of them. We have to have their perspective in this. So I call it the three P's. The three P's. Do you provide people the sense to play to their passions? That's number
Hmm.
one. Do you allow people, are you bringing in people just to fill in the spot and to build a team? Or are you actually bringing in people that you know will thrive in this organization? They have an innate love of oils. They have an innate love of healing. They have an innate love of turning the light bulb on for people, right? So much of our issue with retention is because we have the wrong people in the organization. We hired out of necessity instead of the mentality of always be recruiting, always be looking for good talent, hiring intentionally, not out of necessity. That's a big part of it. So are you hiring people? Are you providing passion for those that are on your team? Number two is the ability to provide. It's the second P, provide. If they can't provide, they'll go and find another job. There's the realities to life. A word called a mortgage, rent, insurance, diapers, things that are expensive, right? They're looking for an ability to provide. Are you providing a competitive commission, a competitive pay structure? Uh, they've got to be able to provide. Number three is purpose. What is the narrative that you're bringing people into? Are you allowing them to do something bigger than themselves? Maybe that's even their schedule, right? Flexibility, the ability to be a better mom because they can do this on the side. Are you telling that story? Maybe it's the sense of you're literally changing people's lives and their health because of the product that we supply. What's the story that you're able to help them to become a part of? Passion, provide, and purpose. If your people can't do that in your organization, they will go and find that somewhere else. I know that's fairly broad,
No, that was perfect.
but to employees, that matters. That's needed.
Everything you've said is so on point and so powerful. In fact, I'm sure you said all of my questions have been answered. Clint, thank you for sharing this vital information. This has been so helpful for me moving forward, with a
You're
heart
welcome.
emoji. And Rebecca says, my oldest daughter is 20 and she is all about doing what she loves, using her natural gifts, having a purpose, and no micromanaging. This was spot on. So thank you so much, Clint. I would love to hear kind of how people can connect with you. What do you have going on in your life right now? How can they get more from you?
Yeah, right now we have the book that my brand new book that is coming out all over the world, April 13th. We decided to title the book "I Love It Here: How Great Leaders Create Organizations Their People Never Want to Leave," and it is the combination of the 4.5 years of research as the Undercover Millennial and how we created this environment where people could speak their truth. This is not another leadership book written by a self-proclaimed leadership expert. That's not what this is. This is a book written by 10,000 employees who knew when their leaders were getting it right. And yeah, so that book is definitely consuming a ton of our time right now. And we'll throw up a little link if that's helpful to anybody. And then I travel as a professional speaker. And we go in and we train teams and organizations on how to create cultures where people can actually thrive. They don't just survive. You can find out more if you're interested, or if I can help or answer any questions. You can go to clintpulver.com. clintpulver.com, that's the website. And again, happy to help and support anybody that was on the call.
Awesome. Thank you. I know that some people have expressed with that have these bigger teams about possibly being interested in working with someone like you to come in and be like, help us to figure out how we reshape our thinking and how we work with customers and leaders. How do we do this? Or mentors now. We need to stop changing it from leaders to mentors. So definitely reach out to him on his website if you're interested in more. And Clint, I know that your time is short, but we have one question that just came in. She
Yeah.
says, if you're a buddy leader currently, like they fear or struggle with talking business. How do you take a first step to being a mentor? What step should that be?
I think it's to, again, step into the standards.
Mhm.
Step in to start caring about that part of your business. Because again, that's the difference between the buddy and the mentor. They both have connection. You're really good at being liked. You're really good at creating good relationships where people love being around you. But again, that's only half of what business is about. There's also profitability and production and productivity that needs to be there. And so I would figure out a plan to start focusing on the productivity, focusing on the standards, focusing on sales, right? That could be where you go in, you have a conversation and you just say, hey, listen, numbers are a little bit lower than what we usually would like them to be. How do we change this? Because this has got to change. This is important. This is how we run a business. This is how we grow. And I'm here to help you do that. And I'm here to make sure that you're successful. But we got to figure that out. That has to be a part of this. Again, you're letting them know that that is a part of your equation. You're not here to just be a friend. You're here to grow a business. But you're also here to help make their life a better story in the process. Standards and connection. So start upping it on your standards.
And for those of you that don't just have, they also have actual hired employees, like where you have an assistant or someone that's supporting you in addition to your other leaders or business partners, all of this applies in the same way. They want the same thing. They want to hear, how do I fit into this? How am I important here? How does this meet my 3 Ps? And so if you have an employee or an assistant, I would have these same conversations with them because they're going to be thinking the same thing. In quarter 3 and 4, are they going to stay? Are they going to say, I love it here. I want to stay and support this person because I'm part of the mission. I'm passionate and I feel like they get me and I'm meaningful here. So thank you, Clint. Sorry, I was about to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to also quickly say, remember too, there also has to be boundaries, right? And sometimes we need to coach people out. Like sometimes you've been trying for like years with the same employee and you're having the standards and it's just a battle and you're going toe to toe. You're not going shoulder to shoulder. We try hard to coach people in to the organization. Sometimes we need to coach people out and that's okay. Sometimes I can get on this bandwagon of like, we got to just love everybody and make sure everyone's wonderful. No, you've got standards and you've got a business that needs to be successful. And if people aren't on board with that and that's not what they're wanting, then it's your job to coach them out.
I hope everybody just took a note in that because I think in network marketing, it's like the more people we can get, everyone's in. Anybody
No.
Here, but I think you need to create that community and that vibe that resonates with what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. That's huge, Clint. Thank you. Well, I know that we are out of time, but Clint, I know that you also have a really great story. If you feel like you have the time to share it with us with the Mr. Jensen. Be like Mr. Jensen. Would you want to share that with us or are you out of time today?
Yeah, we can share it briefly. I was the kid that always struggled to sit still. I had a hard time focusing in school. My right hand would move, my left hand would move. I would just tap. And everybody saw that as a problem until one day I had a teacher and his name was Mr. Jensen. And he told me to stay after class and I thought I'm getting kicked out of school. Like I'm in trouble. This is not good. Anytime a teacher wants to talk to a kid after class, it's not good. And he sat me down and he said, listen, he said, Clint, you're kind of the kid that's on the list. Everybody sees your issue. You tap in my class and you tap in everybody else's class. But then he said, I've watched you though. And you'll sit there and you'll start, you'll take a pen and you'll write with your right hand and then you'll tap with your left hand. And he said, and then you'll switch the pen. And you'll start writing with your left hand and then you tap with your right hand. He said, in big adult words, we call that ambidextrous. I think you're ambidextrous. And I was like, no, I'm Presbyterian. He said, no. He said, that's not what it means. No. He said, can you tap your head and rub your belly at the same time? And I gave it a shot. I could do it. And he said, can you rub your head and then tap your belly? And back and forth without thinking about it, I could do it. And Mr. Jensen, he leaned forward and he looked at me and he said, I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer. And I believe in moments. I believe that the greatest leaders in our lives create moments that are unique, they're different, moments of advocacy, moments where because of who that leader was or because of what that leader said, they changed the narrative for us. And in that moment, Mr. Jensen, the old teacher, he leaned back in his desk and he opened up the top drawer and he reached inside and he took out my very first pair of drumsticks. And he put them in my hands and he said, Clint, I want you to take these and let's just see what happens. And that was over 22 years ago. And I can honestly stand here today and tell you that 22 years ago, literally to this exact moment, I've tried my best to keep my promise to Mr. Jensen. And for 22 years, I've had the opportunity to tour and record all over the world as a professional drummer. I've been on America's Got Talent, played with Tim McGraw, Carrie Underwood, the Blue Man Group. My whole college education was paid for with music scholarships. And I don't tell all of you that to go, wow, good for you, Clint, or oh, what a wonderful story. That's not the reason. The reason I'm telling you that is because of one person. A really good mentor, a great leader, a good educator who decided to get to the part about me. And he created a moment that represented possibility. He sparked that possibility and he communicated my worth and my potential so well to the point that I saw it within myself. And that is the privilege that every single one of you have every day in the role you call a leader, a mentor. There's no greater call. How do people experience you? And how do they experience themselves when they're with you? That matters. And it would be kind of fun. I don't know, Megan. I don't know if you're up for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you would. Would you be willing to?
We have got the drums live in the studio. Is it okay right now if I throw down for everybody?
Absolutely.
Can we turn up the heat a little bit? This is awesome. All right, this is going down. Okay, is it working? Oh my gosh, it's working. Yes, sweet. Okay, now before I put the seat down, before I play, I want to dedicate this to everybody that's watching. And again, we've talked about a lot of things today, but I want you to choose just one thing. What's one thing that you can do today to make that difference, right? In your customers, in your team members. Maybe it's the status interview. Maybe I need to remove myself as the buddy manager and get into that mentorship role. How do I communicate potential and worth? How do I become a mentor? It's easy right now to see what's wrong in the world, but I promise you that if you can start seeing what's right, stop looking at people as a generation and start looking at them as individuals. Change the narrative. And in doing so, you can change your world. So I dedicate this drum solo to that, and I dedicate it also to Mr. Jensen every time before I play. The one person who looked at me 22 years ago and said, you're not a problem, you're a drummer. So this is for him, and it's for you. Let's do this. Mm-hmm.
Well, Clint, my goodness, we don't even know what to say. We're just so thrilled that we got to spend some time with you and your genius today.
Did it work? Did it work? It worked.
That was
Did it
amazing.
work? Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. You're very welcome.
Well,
It's been an
everybody,
honor.
type in the chat how much you appreciate Clint for today. If you have found value from what he shared with us, type it in the chat. I'd love to save these and send them to him afterwards. Thank you, everybody, for spending some time. I hope you gained some valuable insight to you and your business. Clint, I'd love for you to share your book link so that we can access that. And
there it is.
For your heart, Clint, I feel like we gained so much from what you're doing and what we can bring to our teams today. And for your heart, it was so neat to hear your story about Mr. Jensen. And so thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. That's a direct link to Amazon. You can pre-order the book. It comes out April 13th. And my goodness, it's been an honor. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've enjoyed it. And a special shout out to Megan for putting this on and all she does for so many of you. It takes a lot to make something like this happen. So thank you, Megan. Thank you again, everybody, for your time. And let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Happy weekend. See you later. Thank you so much, Clint. Oh, and there's his socials too, if you want to follow him and find him elsewhere. Bye, everybody.